This is the Johnson Wagner platform. This is your pitch to Brian Rolapp, who said, we will respect the traditions of the game, but we will not be bound to them. So here's your, if you had an open forum, and I'm giving you that platform now, to say what you would like to see Brian do, what would you say to him? With that in mind, where do you think the state of the game of golf is right now? Because it's, to me, I was talking about this with Brandel a few episodes ago. I think this was the best year for the PGA Tour in the post-Tiger Woods competitive era. And I want to get your take on where you think the state of the game is right now.
I would completely agree with you on that. I think the ratings were up way ahead of where they'd been the last few years. I think having Rory win the Masters and complete the career Grand Slam really started the major season off right. Obviously, Scheffler winning the PGA and the Open Championship was amazing. And the way J.J. Spaun won the U.S. Open was a great story. Yeah. I think the game is in a good spot. I'm a little leery of the new powers that be at the PGA Tour coming in and shaking things up. And I'm not a fan of 100-man as opposed to 125 keeping their cards. I'm not a fan of necessarily shrinking field sizes and decreasing opportunities, because one thing the PGA Tour does so well that LIV doesn't is that we create stars.
Right.
The PGA Tour, when you play and you win out here and you win it at a heavy clip, you are becoming a star. And I think the more we shrink this, the harder it is for rookies to even keep their job the next year. I'm leery of becoming a closed shop and not creating this new breed of superstars like we're going to see out of hopefully Clanton, Jackson Coyvan, and these guys coming out of college.
That's really interesting, because I know Brian Rolapp, who's the new, I don't know what his title is, Grand Master of Time, Space, and Dimension for the PGA Tour. It's quite an extensive title. I've known him a long time because of obviously his association with the NFL and how much I work with the NFL. And I do see him as a guy who's not afraid to make changes. And I've heard a lot of people in the golf community say what you're saying. And it's sort of a double-edged sword, right? Because you want to try new things. And you want to sort of, anybody comes in, they want to, it's like when Gil Hance redid Pinehurst number 4, right? Like you want to sort of make it, because with Fazio, of course, but you want to change it a little bit, or you want to make it your own. So everybody sort of goes through that process, but there is so much tradition in golf. And I think there's a fine line that Brian's trying to walk, and I think a lot of people are expressing what I've heard from you. It's like, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
And as I look at it from the media perspective, it's completely different than the way I look at it from a former player perspective. I'm looking out for these guys that are just, it's so hard to get to the PGA Tour, much less keep your job out there. And for so many great players, like there are more players turning pro and trying to play professional golf now, and we're shrinking spots and shrinking the avenues in which you can get to the top of the game. But as I look at from a media side, I worked the Sanderson Farms Championship last week. I'm working 3 or 4 other fall events, and I love the fall. That's when a lot of guys are keeping their job. I think what we're going to see is we're going to see the fall series on the PGA Tour get phased out. And you know what? To be honest, it may be nice for the golf fan to miss the sport for a while. I feel like the PGA Tour plays so many weeks that the fan never has the opportunity to be like, man, I wish there was a golf tournament this weekend, because there's a tournament every single weekend.
Right.
And I do think from that my media side of my brain, gosh, it would be nice to miss the sport for a little bit.
It's interesting, right? Because I think we can. I'm assuming you like football. I mean, you were born in Amarillo, Texas. You better. But from the thing that the football has going for them the most, to me, over any other sport, is you don't play 82 games like you do in the NHL or the NBA. You don't play 162 games. You play 17. We'll probably play 18. And then, you amp up. Now, I get it. Now we're on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, some Saturday games. But there is that time where you're waiting for that thing to happen. I mean, I get guys that, on social media all the time, 100 days till the start of the season, 40 days till the start of the season. So there is something to that, to what you're saying. How difficult do you think it would be for a lot of people in golf to get to where your media side of your brain is when you think about it that way?
I think the fan would love it. I think it would be missed. But I think from a player side, if the PGA Tour is going to go that route of shrinking down the schedule, they're going to need to have to build up that Korn Ferry Tour, because you're going to start seeing a lot of big name play. You're already seeing it out there. Big name players going back to get their cards and through that tour. And I would like to see maybe low-end PGA Tour events, high-end Korn Ferry events kind of come together and create a much bigger platform on that tour. I think Golf Channel could obviously televise more of those events, and I think when you start seeing the names that are going to be back down there next year, I think that tour needs to be strengthened. And that could be the tour that's every week that we see week in, week out. It's, I've heard it called PGA Tour Light, but it could really be that platform that the avid golf fan could get on a week in, week out basis.
Well, I've just got the marketing slogan: PGA Tour Light, less filling, still tastes delicious, and we've solved all the problems. So this is let's do this, because you have become a thing in golf circles. So this is the Johnson Wagner platform. This is your pitch to Brian Rolapp, who said, "We will respect the traditions of the game, but we will not be bound to them." So if you had an open forum, and I'm giving you that platform now to say what you would like to see Brian do, what would you say to him?
I think field sizes. I think it needs to be, if you keep your card on the PGA Tour, it's a 100-man field. I think if it's 20 weeks plus the majors, I think you have this PGA Tour season where there are no sponsor exemptions. So a guy that doesn't get in that top 100, he's got to go back down. So if there's a call it a 20-week PGA Tour schedule, play big purses, but all 100 players that keep their card get into those events. That's what I would like to see. Have of those 100 that play in those events, maybe the top 70 keep their card for that top 100 next year. Give 10 spots from the Korn Ferry Tour, give 10 spots to the DP World Tour, and have a Q school. I haven't really thought this out. Maybe 15 from DP World, 15 from Korn Ferry, and then everybody else has to go back to the Korn Ferry. So a guy like Ricky Fowler's a bad example, but last year he was outside the top 100. Ricky Fowler would then have to go back down to that Korn Ferry Tour, and I just think you'd have a really interesting secondary tour, and you'd have the top 100 players in the world playing week in, week out, with some churn, with some changeover, having those 15 fresh people from both the DP World Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour coming in every year.
I actually really like that idea. I like that a lot, actually. So, Brian, if you're listening, and I know you are, take heed to what Johnson just said. But the one problem, obviously, is going to be the sponsors' exemptions, right? Because if the sponsors are like, hey, I'm fronting this, you got to give me something of what I want, right? That's going to be the pushback.
Yeah, and they're spending $20 to $25 million a year for a single tournament at this signature level scale. So, yes, is TV ratings enough? Is advertising enough? No, AT&T sponsors Pebble Beach. Jordan Spieth's been an AT&T guy for his entire career.
Right.
You can rest assured Jordan Spieth will be playing the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am next year.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because the one move I want, and I'd love to get your take on this as a guy who did it the old way, I cannot stand the fact that the PGA is in May. It drives me crazy. I feel like the majors are over in the blink of an eye. And, everybody ramps up for the Masters because it's really the coming up party for golf. Look, I know normally the Century in Kapalua, where we spend time, is sort of the unofficial start to the season. Everybody gets ready. It's a terrible thing that we're not going to be able to have it there this year. Don't get me started on that one. But, the idea that we wait so long for Augusta, and then next month is the PGA Championship, and then it's the U.S. Open, then it's the Open Championship, and we're done by July 20th. I actually DM Brian this. I said, look, congratulations. I really, really want you to move the PGA back to August. And I know that the pushback is, well, we got the playoffs and what we do there. To me, that's secondary. The majors are everything in golf, and that's what drives the audience. And the idea that it's over July 20th just drives me crazy. Do you like it, or would you like to move it back?
I'm okay with it being in May.
Shame! No, I'm just kidding.
Covering the majors, I feel like from the Masters until after the Open, I feel like the last 2 years has flown by. I don't feel like I've seen my family at all between the months of April and July. And I think the PGA Tour not owning any of the majors has a lot to do with it. They've really structured this to where the Players is in March, and I don't see that happening. Plus, August is such a bad month in the United States for no matter where you go. You get heat. The course conditions aren't going to be great because even in New York, it's hot. You're having to water these Poana or bent grass greens. I think I've heard a lot of people say they want the PGA back in August, and I would be fine with it, but I'm also quite content with where things are right now.
Well, and I get it. I understand from a scheduling perspective what you're talking about. Like for me, after what Scotty did at Portrush, right? 1,197 days between his first major and his fourth major. Same number of days between Tiger Woods' first major and his fourth major. Literally the same, doing things on a Tiger Woods level, and then it's July 20th. All right, we'll see you in April. I mean, like, I just felt like there was so much momentum that golf, I mean, I play as much golf in August than I do in almost any other month, and I hear what you're saying. But we've had PGA championships in August at Southern Hills in Tulsa, Oklahoma before, in 2007. You know, and like when you see the PGA at Oak Hill and outside Rochester in May, you know, the weather's pretty shitty in upstate New York that time of year. And it would be a lot nicer, even though it would be hotter, it would be a lot nicer in those, you know, upstate New York, Massachusetts golf courses, you know, upper Midwest. There's so much good golf in Wisconsin and Michigan. Those places could actually have a chance to host a major championship again if it goes back to that August date.
Well, so what do you do with the playoffs then? Does the PGA? Because I feel like the playoffs this year were better than they've been in years past, and there was a little more interest. I think that more important to me is how you fix the playoffs, because the Tour Championship last year was flat. The guys are tired. They didn't want to be there. This year felt a little bit better because anybody that was there had a chance to win. So I think if you move that PGA back to August, how do you make the playoffs meaningful? And because I think the PGA Tour, they want people to consider the FedEx Cup playoffs on par with the majors, and I agree with you right now. It is not that way. Yeah. But what can you do to make it that way?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm not sure there's anything you can do to make it that, right? I mean, like to me, it's kind of like the President's Cup is never going to be the Ryder's Cup, you know, or the Ryder Cup. Excuse me, I don't know why I said the Ryder's Cup. You know, the President's Cup is never going to be the Ryder Cup. It just isn't. It's just a thing that they tried to create to make some money. And I understand. To me, the playoffs are similar and they are important, but I don't think most people think them as nearly as important as the majors. And I guess my thought process, and it's easy for me to say this because I don't have to do it. We'll figure that out later. Like to me, the priority is for me as a fan and a guy who consumes golf and a guy who loves golf, the idea that our last major is done in July 20th just doesn't sit well with me. And you know, I know this is going to upset some people, especially those who have only won their only major is the PGA Championship. You know, the U.S. Open is the toughest test in golf. The Masters is the Masters. It's sort of a reawakening for all of us to fall in love with the game again. And the Open is the oldest championship that we have in this sport. The PGA is, for lack of a better term, 4 out of 4 for most people when they rank the majors. And I think the idea of having it last adds a little more credo to it. Like for years, TNT did it, and they had the PGA, and they called it Glory's Last Shot. Now we can do the whole thing where grammatically that's incorrect because Glory doesn't have a shot. You have a shot at Glory. That's a separate issue entirely. But I think by having it as the last major, it gave it a little more gravitas. It gave it a little more, this is my last chance to bag one of these things. And I think that made it a little more interesting.
And I mean, you're selling me on this. There is
yes!
no identity to the.
Yes.
There's no the PGA of America. The PGA Championship has the least identity of any of the majors, and it does being the last one makes it more valuable. And I do. Gosh, Michigan and Wisconsin. I was just at Sand Valley in Wisconsin.
Oh my God! How great is Sand Valley? How great is Erin Hills? You know, how great is Acadia Bluffs? You know,
there are. The window, I mean, we just had the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow in Charlotte here in May, my home course, and it was incredible. We had a lot of bad weather early in the week with rain, but I feel like with the May date, Oak Hill got lucky with the weather.
Very lucky.
I mean, it could have been a nightmare. And by the way, the membership, they shut down in October. Members were not allowed to play that golf course for it was like 6 months, 7 months that they couldn't play because they had to do so much stuff to get the grass ready to be played on in May that far north. So I'm with you. The opportunities to have And we had a PGA in 17 in Charlotte in August. That was nasty. It was hot and not a great time of year to be here. But I do think the northern areas, the Pacific Northwest, will be much better in August.
Absolutely. How about
where we're seeing now?
Yeah, go back to Sahali. Yeah, go to Sahali. Go to freaking Chambers Bay again. The other thing too, like when it was at Bethpage in 2019 after the Masters, it was freaking cold. Like it was in the 40s. I mean that's what's in play there. And by the way, if I've convinced you, we've done my job. They say if you reach one person, Johnson, if you reach one person, you've done that. But you're right. The problem is what do you do with the FedEx playoffs? And I think it's manageable, but to me, and again, the issue is the PGA Tour doesn't own any of these, so it's all a negotiation. I would love to see the PGA back. And I'm not terrified, by the way, of running into the first couple of weeks of the NFL season. I think that golf consumers are a very different audience than football consumers, college football especially, and the NFL. I think if people want to watch golf, they'll find a way to watch it. You may lose some casual viewers, but I think the people that are really interested in the Tour Championship and the FedEx Cup playoffs, that will still be appealing to them no matter what else is going on.
That's a fair point. I mean, my first few years playing, and we played in Boston over Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
It was the third playoff event. It was great. It was the second playoff
Second
event
one,
of 4, and loved being up there in early September. I mean, the PGA Tour is so concerned about going up against football, and if that's the case, the season should start later too. Why are we starting in January, running up against football, running up against AFC NFC Championship weekend is a horrible weekend to be playing golf at Torrey Pines. Yeah,
that's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that. If you're so concerned about it, why are you starting the tour with the 2 most watched games outside of the Super Bowl? You know what I mean? Like, if you're that concerned about it, you wouldn't be there. See, this is why conversation matters, okay? You've just made an excellent point that I hadn't even thought of. You can't say it's a problem in September, but it isn't a problem in January where everything is on the line. Again, Brian, we're here for you, man. We are here for you to help guide you through this.
I mean, that's CBS's first week, and Jim Nantz is calling the golf from the booth at pretty much Arrowhead Stadium. It has been the last few years.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. All right, this was a breakout year, as we talked about on the PGA Tour. How does the tour continue to sort of manifest itself and build off the success we had in 2025?
I mean, adding another signature event's great. Having stars win, having Scotty Scheffler do what he's doing the last couple of years, having Rory McIlroy complete the career Grand Slam, I think Scotty Scheffler, Shinnecock U.S. Open, I think to complete the career Grand Slam in a speed in which he would do it on his first crack at it, I think having the stars continue to play well is massively important. I also am looking forward to Michael Thorbjornsen, Luke Clanton, these young players coming out and winning. I don't think the tour can do anything. I think it's upon the players to make it interesting. Personally, I don't know. I like the whole Brian Rolapp thing and wanting to be the PGA Tour wanting to turn a profit is so hard for me because every single tournament is its own entity. It's its own business. They run the tour doesn't run these events. Now they have a management team that does run a handful of tournaments, but how do you become profitable in a nonprofit world when each tournament donates all their earnings back to their event and to the charities in the local communities? I don't this whole big change thing coming. I don't know how you change the whole model of the PGA Tour personally.
Well, you're right, and that's the issue. I mean, especially when you talk about LIV doesn't care about that because that's not their end game, but it is the end game now with the private equity coming in here, and that's the game changer that the tour has got to figure out. Right, they've got to figure out some way to keep the players, have enough money for the players. Have enough people investing in the tour so they can have enough money for the players, but then make sure the whole model of what the PGA Tour isn't washed away at the same time.
Yeah, and because we've been talking about this a lot in live from trailers, just behind the scenes chats with everybody there, producers, Brandel, Rich, everybody. Like, how is SSG going to get a return on that $3 billion?
11% is what they're looking for. 11% on $3 billion. That's the thing they put out there.
Is it gonna come out of the charitable dollars? Are they gonna stop the Champions Tour? Because I know that the PGA Tour subsidizes a lot of those purses. Are they gonna how? I think I just don't. I don't have the answer. I just don't know how they're gonna get that sort of return.
Yeah, it's that's probably the biggest thing that Brian's got to figure out, right? If we're talking about all this other ancillary stuff and moving this and moving that, at the end of the day, everything has to be about, does this make this work? And I think that's his biggest challenge going forward.